Hello guys, my name is Justin Filipong and today, me, Aaron Ting, Brian Ang, Jericho Gortiza, and Lance D are going to discuss about an article named What's So Bad About Apple? But first, what is business ethics? According to Investopedia, business ethics is the study of appropriate business policies and practices regarding potentially controversial subjects including corporate governance, insider trading, bribery, discrimination, corporate social responsibility, and fiduciary responsibilities. In other words, it is a type of applied ethics or professional ethics that discusses ethical principles and moral or ethical issues that may occur in a company setting. Additionally, it extends to all facets of the conduct of business and is applicable to the conduct of individuals and organizations as a whole. Such ethics derive from citizens, corporate statements, or the legal framework. The ideals that govern an organizations are the standards, beliefs, legal and immoral activities. They help those companies build a stronger relationship with their stakeholders. Furthermore, business ethics refers to the contemporary corporate principles, beliefs, sets of values and standards that regulate an individual's conduct and behavior in the company's organization. Overall, business ethics are the moral principles that act as guidelines for the way a business conducts itself and its transactions. In many ways, the same guidelines that individuals use to conduct themselves in an acceptable way in personal and professional settings apply to businesses as well.
The importance of business ethics reaches far beyond employee loyalty and morale, or the strength of a management team bond. As with all business initiatives, the ethical operation of a company is directly related to the profitability in both the short and long term. The reputation of a business in the surrounding community, other businesses, and individual investors is paramount in determining whether a company is a worthwhile investment. If a company is perceived to not operate ethically, investors are less likely inclined to buy stock or otherwise support its operations. Companies have more and more of an incentive to be ethical as the area of socially responsible and ethical investing keeps growing. The increasing number of investors seeking out ethically operating companies to invest in is driving more firms to take this issue more seriously. Another reason for studying business ethics is to know your defense. Business ethics are a strong defense. By already establishing what business ethics your company is going to adopt, this is a good defense against bad publicity. But at the end of the day, with consistent ethical behavior comes an increasingly positive public image. And there are a few other considerations as important to potential investors and current shareholders. To retain a positive image, businesses must be committed to operating on an ethical foundation as it relates to the treatment of employees, respecting the surrounding environment, and fair market practices in terms of price and consumer treatment.
Apple Incorporation is an American multinational technology company headquartered in Cupertino, California, that designs, develops, and sells consumer electronics, computer software, and online services. It has an estimated net worth of $2 trillion as of August 2020 and is the first American company that has reached the 2 trillion market cap. Despite it being one of the top end companies, it has faced numerous challenges and some of them are related to the work environment and health of the workers in the factories that make and build their products. The article tells us the working conditions at its factories in developing nations, or rather criticisms over working conditions by its subcontractors. It also tells us the health of the workers and how they feel working on the sub companies, and also the company's attempt that they made to improve the working environment. Even so, the Apple has nothing to be ashamed of despite it having some issues like this. As a future businessman, we could learn a thing or two from this article and could use this in building our own businesses and would not make the mistakes that they did.
Apple. When we think about the word Apple, first thing that comes into our minds are iPhones, iPads, MacBooks, iMacs, etc. Well, Apple has factories in China which are run by, monitored by, their contractor Foxconn. Foxconn has been criticized on its working conditions for their employees in the past. Study shows employees commit suicide due to their working conditions in the factories of Foxconn. However, statistics also show that the suicides are a little lower than the average Chinese suicides, which are ultimately unavoidable. We also learned that employees wanting overtime does not necessarily mean their working conditions are poor, but they either just want to have some extra cash or their wages are not high enough to support their family. Although one Chinese source have suggested that Foxconn decided to double their wages for the employees, this is not still entirely a wow factor, since wages were already incredibly low to start with. The increase in wages should not also be because of the pressure the activist groups in China gave. Although working conditions within Foxconn factories are not ideal, the workers were not forced to work, but they rather volunteered as it provides a lot of opportunities not otherwise available to them. Knowing all of this, the fact that Foxconn working conditions are not ideal still stays true. As a multi-billion-dollar company, Apple should set out in becoming a role model to those other companies just starting up or planning to start by.
Foxconn is a Taiwanese company and it doesn't only supply Apple but also Microsoft, Dell, and Sony. However, Foxconn is the main assembler of Apple products, which means it is the largest iPhone factory of Apple. Due to the labor exploitation at Foxconn, it came into spotlight when numerous workers committed suicide by throwing themselves off their dorm buildings. Reports determined that there were 18 suicide attempts and 14 confirmed accounts of death in 2010. One might question if the working conditions have changed. On the surface level, all of the line workers at Foxconn China seem to be full-time employees. What we do not know, however, is that many line workers at Foxconn are part-time student workers who are interning at the factory. In 2019, Apple and Foxconn came under scrutiny for breaking the Chinese labor law. Chinese Labor Watch, a non-profit organization that defends workers' rights, their investigation revealed that 50% of the workers in Foxconn City were temporary workers. According to Chinese labor laws, only a maximum of 10% of a company employees can be part-time workers. The China Labor Watch report placed some of the blame on the Chinese government for turning a blind eye to labor violations. We know that if a company is breaking even the Chinese labor laws, then it is really bad, as even the Chinese do have labor laws. The exploitation here is that the student part-time workers are interns, which suggests that they are underpaid. The Chinese Labor Watch also reported that during peak production periods, resignations are not approved. Student workers do overtime during peak production season, even though regulations on student internships prohibit this. You might be wondering why there is still a large demand of work there. While Foxconn manufacturing practices may seem unethical to those who live in an advanced tertiary economy, but relative to other manufacturing jobs in China and elsewhere, both pay and standard of living are higher for workers. It has housing, food, and recreation provided to employees by Foxconn. Certainly ours could be shorter and pay could be higher, but companies like Apple have great demand for Chinese manufacturing for a reason. If you don't know why, it is because China has the abundance of lower wage workers available in the country. Many companies like Foxconn are able to provide cheap labor for American companies by providing what many people believe are unethical working conditions. Lower costs of living make China's low wages manageable for the common manufacturing worker. Due to the high demands of iPhones during Christmas, workers are forced to work overtime. Overtime is reported to be both a punishment and reward. The workers are given overtime as a reward and also a mandatory requirement. Workers often want overtime because their monthly base pay is at around 2,100 yen. It is low, while the only way they can make more than 3,000 yen is overtime. The only way for the working conditions to become better in Foxconn is if Apple decides to do something about it. The thing is, costs of living are different, standards of living are different. There is a huge supply of poor people who are willing to work to be less poor. If Foxconn somehow manages to improve their situation, there will always be another factory in China that will exploit these bad working conditions. If China just keeps getting more populated, there will always be an abundance of workers and unlimited supply of work. Apple is just scamming you anyway. Stop buying Apple products. Yep.